Today we're tackling shin splints, only we're not. I'm calling it lower leg ability. Lower leg refers to what's below your knee. I don't like to use medical terms. I like to use ability terms because any of this and many other lower leg problems will fix with this simple way of finding why you have the pain and then how do you get rid of it. So for me, I used to get it in preseason basketball. We'd run a lot of suicide sprints. That was not from having too weak of calves that I would get. I would get crazy pain starting right there and going like all the way up. But I've had it. I've had front shin splints. I've had these shin splints. I've had Achilles tendonitis. I've had plantar fasciitis so bad, heel pain, big toe pain, you name it. I've had it. Now I would get it in preseason basketball running these suicides. You don't run a suicide and stay on your toes like that. You're running and then clop, clop, clop. Now, if we watch that, as soon as the heel goes to slam, boom, there's the tibialis. And it's same thing for when I would try to jump higher off one foot. I would always be thwarted by the fact that I would just get too much pain all through there. So I actually couldn't jump my hardest because it would hurt through there. So I fixed many forms. No athletes that I train carry these things because of the way we train. We wash them all away. But if you want the quickest fix, you can look at what's your cause. Because I've also seen track athletes that they're actually on the ball of their foot. Like when they're in a track spike, if you've ever seen a track spike, it doesn't even have a heel. So they're doing their sprints and they're actually usually slowing down on the balls of their feet. Now, especially in athletes like bobsledders or rugby players, right? Because what will they do? They start out a normal human. Then they go into the weight room. They jack up thousands of sets, years, never training their calves. Or if they do, if it's an afterthought, it's definitely not, there's not one fucking track athlete or a rugby player or bobsledder who's done as many sets for their calves as they have for their quads and hips and upper body. And that's often why guys like Christophe Lemaitre will run their fastest and look like they have all this potential and then actually get slower as the years go by because they're training their body disproportionately to what they need. And then you look at go look up the top decathlete in the world right now. I forget his name, but he's done some of our exercises. Holy crap, does he have lower leg goals. I mean, veins everywhere. I mean, Connor could flip the camera around on his own calves, but the point is, how much force can you handle in your lower legs? And is it because of your tibialis or is it because of your calf? And the truth is you want both of them super capable, but if you're trying to get rid of it like as fast as possible, so if you're like preseason, you're like, oh fuck, I already have shin splints, and you know it's from your tibialis, then you could start doing like what you could start after every practice, just grinding and strengthening those muscles. And maybe it'll be tough the first week, but by the time you recover after the weekend, you'll come around stronger and stronger and stronger. But when in doubt, also train your calves every day. Just know that if you do standing calf raises, you're more likely to get crazy sore up here. I absolutely love standing calf raises, but you're much more likely to get super sore. Whereas a seated calf raise is actually, you could hit every day, have no soreness. The soleus, which is the lower calf, you have an upper calf and a lower calf. The soleus, the lower calf, has a stronger pull than any other muscle in your body. And that means it's the most trainable muscle. And I found this to bear true. So I found that you can do, I remember I was mid a college season, my shin splints were so bad, I was having to pre-wrap up to about, I would have to start at my plantar fascia and go all the way up, pre-wrap and tape before every practice. Not just game, I'd have to get to practice like 45 minutes early. Well, what fixed that and got me off the tape? Seated calf raises every day. Pausing at the bottom, holding the tippy top position. Really no like magic recipe, just bringing up how much volume have you given to this. So seated, if it's short term, I would say seated calf, but long term, you want standing calf as well. So maybe if you have the weekend off with your team, hit standing calf on Friday, hit seated calf Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So tibialis, when in doubt, superset with calves. And then you can look at your fix short term, long term. It even then gets down into the fact, if you're a guy who's had a lot of shin splints and now you're working on our like reverse step ups, I would suggest doing, you can stay right there, I'll just grab the nearest thing. I would suggest doing the Peterson version where you have to lift your own ball of your foot. So you actually have to handle through your foot anything that you can produce out of your knee. So like this would be a golden exercise to prevent long-term shin splints. And that's why like I'm doing a bionic bounce program right now, which anyone can go on to after anti-gravity if there's someone who actually wants more muscle mass, but wants more muscle mass in a way that they're gonna jump higher. And that's because I'm gonna grow my quads and glutes, and so if I'm adding that weight, and I know most guys who are skinnier and now add that weight, they need to really bring up foot strength. So I'm actually driving up Peterson step-up strength. Similar would hold true for our rhythm squats. Rhythm squats are another great one that prevent you from neglecting your lower legs. All sled work is really good, whether you're going backwards or whether you're going forwards. That's another part. So if we look at the total things, there's actually a lot of ways to get rid of it, and there's one that I haven't gone over. But if we went from the basics, we would have tib and calf raises, and we would just have to face the fact that if you're watching this, you haven't done as many tib calf raises as you've done squats, deadlifts, Olympic lifts, etc. And then add in however much upper body you've done, that's just more weight. So number one right there, you might as well start there. And it's very safe, and if you know that your tib raises are not gonna make you too sore, and then if you do seated for short term, then that's a really safe way to get started. Then you have more long-term exercises. You have standing calf, but you also have like Peterson step-ups and rhythm squats. And then, as something you could do anytime, it's very equipment relative. So like I personally don't even do any, like I love heavy sled pushing for lower leg issues, but I'm not personally doing any of that because not everyone's gonna have access to that. So that would be optional, like on my bionic bounce program, optional, but I'm not personally doing it because I'm not gonna do something that you're not necessarily gonna have access to. But basically, sled work, as you can see, you can't push a heavy sled, like you have to go through your feet. So again, it's ensuring that your lower legs and feet actually get the attention they deserve. So these would be the big three areas. This would kind of be like an anytime because the sled doesn't get you too sore. These would definitely be more long-term fixes, and then these would be like short-term with making sure to know that on the calf, that seated calf is not going to make you as sore and you can do it more frequently. But there's one thing here that I've actually used, and I'm just going to put this very importantly that it's off-season. Because I haven't used this, I would not use this in season, but damn, is it actually pretty effective. And the thing is, we're missing tendons. And what I mean by that is, even if you do this stuff to catch up, well, now you're giving yourself the chance to run faster and jump higher. So, and then now take into account that all the squats and deadlifts you did were not for nothing. Now you can actually use them by bringing the lower leg into the equation. So by bringing up your lower leg, you're actually going to be running faster. If you're running faster, it means you're going to be slowing down harder. If you're jumping higher, it means you're going to be landing higher. And it just means that if you have an off-season gap, you can speed up the process of the tendon. So I want you to go on Google right now, pause the video, go on Google and look up Achilles tendon. It's fucking huge. So if you jack up the upper calf, the soleus, the tibialis, and now you're using all your speed, you're running faster, well, the tendon is going to take time to adapt as well, because these aren't adapting the tendon, these are adapting the muscles, and the muscle is then held to the bone by the tendon. So how can we speed that up when it comes to shin splints? For example, for knees, I've actually found that in the off season, if you build up properly with not these, but with your knee exercises, then in the off season you can actually use depth jumps to speed up how healthy your patellar tendons get. Well, for the Achilles tendon, again, you're breaking up. Is this caused by slowing down on my toes, or is it caused by slowing down on my heels? And the exercise that I found solve it, and I'm talking, I could go get some testimonials for you right now of guys who had shin splints for like a decade, and then in literally one off season fixed it with bounding. Now it was compounded with all this stuff, but the bounding in a single off season transformed their Achilles tendons and made them way faster and jump way higher. And so bounding is actually a super simple drill because it just means jumping as far as you can. So if you start on one leg and you jump as far as you can, and then when you land, you try to jump as far as you can again, you'll get better and better at bounding. And I recommend studying Stefan Holm. It's a very tough link to find because it's in German. Can't even remember how to pronounce it, but Stefan Holm was sub 6 foot and was one of the best high jumpers of all time. Sub 6 foot white guy, won a Olympic gold medal in the high jump. And he was known for not having some genetically crazy high cheetah-like Achilles tendon. He was able to somehow overcome that, and he was a master of bounding. And you can actually see video of him bounding. So I'm not going to try to pretend to be a bounding expert, but what's cool is with guys that I've completely fixed lifelong shin splints, they didn't have to be an expert at bounding either, just by getting them to jump as far as they can. So there's two forms of bounding that I teach. One is on your heel. So how far can you get? And I basically, once a week, because the recovery is going to be tough, but you just go once a week. By the end of summer, you actually can't even give yourself shin splints no matter how hard you try, because your tendon has adapted up. But if you go all summer and you don't do any of that, and now you go to do your suicide and you slow down, you're still going to be susceptible to shin splints. So you see that by putting more force than you'll ever have on the field and just doing it once a week. I'm talking twice max, and that's getting too risky. Once a week, doing more force than you'll ever have on the quarter field will protect you then when you have 7 days a week. If your coach is a psycho, which 99.9% are completely psychotic. So when you have that 7 day a week low intensity pressure, but if you didn't prepare yourself all off season, that can actually hurt you and wear you down. But if you've prepared yourself and you can handle this much, then that just won't get to you, especially if you keep up and you never get out of balance, because then if your team's going back to only squats, deadlifts, if you stop doing calf tibialis raises, you can leave yourself susceptible. So that will give you a full picture. And if you are an athlete that you think it's because of slowing down on your toes, then you do the same drill, and it's brutally tough. So this one, you jump as far as you can, but on the ball of your foot. So Stefan Holm did high jump, where you run up and you go off your heel. So if you look at his, it's this really smooth heel landing. You can probably find examples of some people doing it. So you see, if we looked at it in slow motion, one of them, you're slamming through your heel. Jump as far as you can, jump as far as you can. The other one is jump as far, right there through the toe. Jump as far as you can, jump as far as you can. So it's probably, I've used both with football players training for 40-yard dash who are jacked, but are just like 8-year-old girls walking around when they're not warmed up because their shin splints are so bad. The bounding on the ball of the foot bounding. But then usually for basketball players, usually it's heel of the foot. So think if it's sprinting and slowing down on the balls of your foot that's hurting you, then the ball of the foot bounding. When in doubt, do both. Really, when in doubt, don't do them at all, and start with the basics, because most people will actually fix on the basics. Remember that where this becomes more important is the guys who have actually become great athletes but neglecting their lower legs. If you've become an incredibly powerful athlete, neglecting your lower legs, and now you're sprinting at high speeds, jumping at tremendous heights because of your hip power and your knee power, this can help you make up for lost time. But if you're catching yourself before you're a freak athlete, these were freak athletes that I use this bounding for. Say you start out you're at like a 30-inch vertical. You don't have to worry about that, because by doing this, you're then gradually, as you jump higher, as you run faster, you're going to be able to handle it, and your Achilles will adapt over time. So when it comes to the tendons, recognize, am I going to let my tendon adapt over time, or do I have Olympic trials in 6 months, but I've had shin splints for 6 years? That's the case that I would use once a week bounding along with hammering away at this stuff And I would actually put the volume of this higher than the volume of squats and stuff like that. So that should give you a full look at shin splints.